They arrived in the sky like gods out of a forgotten myth, sleek silver dreadnoughts that blotted out the stars and shimmered with plasma veins. Earth had long anticipated extraterrestrial contact, but no one expected the Volari, and certainly no one expected them to laugh. The first transmission broadcast globally, a tall, armor-clad woman with glacial eyes and a voice like tempered steel. Her name was Commander Alexa, and she stood flanked by two other towering figures, women as severe as statues, each with spears that hissed with energy. Her words were crisp and cutting. Earth, we have come not for conquest, but for confirmation. You are as weak as your signals implied. Your history is rife with chaos, guided by unworthy men. We wonder, how have you survived it all? The silence that followed was not one of fear, but of insult. Entire governments reeled, scrambling to understand the message, to analyze the tone. But the message was clear. The Volari were not here to fight, at least not yet. They were here to judge. From a secure UN facility buried deep in Geneva, Earth's response began to take form. Most of the global heads of state were still arguing semantics, fearful of escalating an already humiliating encounter. Amidst the turmoil, one man was summoned not to argue, but to understand. Lucas Vance had never set foot inside a war room before. A civilian linguist and cultural anthropologist, his specialty was dead languages and first contact theory. He was not tall, not broad, not particularly commanding, but he had a mind like a scalpel and eyes that missed nothing. And that, apparently, was enough. He stood before the world's delegates, adjusting his jacket as satellites projected the image of the Volari ship hovering in Earth's orbit. You asked for someone who could communicate with them, he said quietly. You're not going to do that through threat displays. You're going to do it by listening. The room had gone still. He didn't care. He wasn't there to impress. He was there to prevent what might become a war. The transport shuttle that carried him to the orbiting Volari vessel felt more like a coffin than a ship. Silent, unarmed, and carrying a single envoy him. He had no weapon, no translator device beyond his own instincts. Protocol insisted this be a gesture of peace. The Volari had agreed to receive him, though the tone of their message suggested amusement rather than respect. Lucas stepped onto the hangar deck, beneath a cathedral ceiling of metal and light. The air smelled sterile, tinged with ozone. Alexa was already waiting, her arms crossed, lips pulled into something just shy of a smirk. She did not offer a greeting. So the planet sends a mail, she said, circling him with slow, deliberate steps. A soft one at that. No armor, no blade. Do you believe your words can defend your people? Lucas turned to face her, calm. No, he said, but I believe words can change the need for defense. Alexa raised a brow. One of her guards chuckled. And what strength do you offer, human? What victories? What scars? I offer understanding, Lucas replied. And I think, if you truly meant to destroy us, you wouldn't be talking. So, either you're curious or you're afraid of being wrong. The smirk vanished. A challenge hung in the air, not from Lucas, not directly, but from his calm, his audacity to speak without trembling. Volari warriors valued strength, but they respected clarity. And Lucas, for all his civilian softness, stood unflinching. Alexa raised her hand, and one of her warriors stepped forward, a massive woman with braids down her back and eyes like molten stone. You will face Viral in the hall, Alexa said. Not to the death, to the truth. Lucas blinked. I assume I can't decline? Alexa smiled faintly. You may, but that would confirm our suspicions. He followed them deeper into the vessel, past halls etched with ancient runes, through chambers lined with weaponry from 100 worlds. The hall was circular, open, beneath a skylight of shifting stars. Viral stood at its center, waiting. Lucas didn't have a weapon. He didn't need one. As the match began, Viral lunged. Lucas dodged, not gracefully, but just enough. He circled, watching her, studying how she moved. She struck again, measured, testing. He spoke as he moved. Why are you angry with us? He asked aloud. Because we're led by men? Or because we're different? Viral frowned, her steps slowing. She had expected fear, flailing, pleading. Is it weakness to lead with words? Lucas asked again, is compassion a flaw? Viral's next strike was hesitant. Lucas caught her arm, not to harm, but to stop her. What is the Valari's strength, truly? He said, voice rising. Is it power alone, or is it the discipline not to abuse it? The hall was quiet now. Warriors lined the walls, watching. Alexa's gaze was unreadable. Viral stepped back. Then, slowly, she knelt, not in submission, but in acknowledgement, not a defeat, but of something else. Respect. Lucas exhaled. His heart thundered in his chest, but he didn't show it. Alexa rose from her place above the ring. Her voice, when it came, was low. You speak of compassion, like it is a weapon. He met her eyes. Maybe it is. She regarded him for a long moment, then turned. Tomorrow, she said, you will show me your Earth. The words fell like the first crack in ice. Lucas stood in the center of the hall, surrounded by warriors bred for war, and for the first time, they were listening. The shuttle descended over Earth's surface, carving a silent path through clouds as a blue planet unveiled its splendor. Forests sprawled like emerald oceans. Cities shimmered with light and movement, and oceans glittered with the sun's fire. Alexa stood beside Lucas, arms folded, her gaze sharp but unreadable. She wore no armor now, only a dark uniform that clung to her like second skin, less ceremonial, more functional. Lucas watched her watch his world. You expected less, he said without prompting. I expected clutter, she replied. Primitive chaos. Noise without reason. We have plenty of that, he admitted. But there's more. Their first stop was Kyoto, a deliberate choice. Lucas wanted her to see where ancient and modern live side by side. They walked beneath cherry blossoms, their petals drifting like snow. The streets buzzed with life, but no one approached them. Alexa moved like a shadow, graceful and imposing, and Lucas matched her pace with quiet certainty. What is the purpose of this place? She asked, glancing at an elderly man tending a bonsai garden. Patience, Lucas answered. Discipline, a kind of strength you can't measure in victories. She tilted her head, as though seeing the city through a new lens. Your people waste time, or we invest it differently. They move from shrines to galleries, where ink-drawn dragons shared walls with digital murals. Alexa paused before sculpture, warped metal shaped into something abstract and fierce. This is battle, she said, her fingers grazing the jagged edge. But broken, like aftermath. Lucas nodded. Made by a survivor of Hiroshima. It's called restraint. She didn't speak for several heartbeats. When she turned, something softer had settled behind her eyes. The Valari did not lack intelligence. They revered tactics, honored legacy. But Earth's expressions of struggle, its art, its contradictions, were foreign to them. Emotion as strength was a concept that ran counter to their creed. In the days that followed, Lucas showed her more. They visited Istanbul's spice markets, where the air was thick with scent and language. In Ghana, they watched dancers tell history with their bodies. In a quiet library in Prague, she ran her fingers along the spines of 1,000 stories. Everywhere they went, he explained, not as a man defending his world, but as one unfolding it. I see contradiction, Alexa murmured as they stood on a rooftop in Sao Paulo. City lights sprawled like veins below. Your people destroy and create with equal passion. Lucas gave a small, tired smile. That's humanity. We're chaotic, but it's not always a flaw. She considered that in silence, then asked, why do your males lead when so often they're the weaker voice? Tradition, he answered. Sometimes fear, sometimes pride, but not always, and not forever. Alexa looked at him, her expression guarded. And yet they sent you. They sent me because I listen, because I study what others overlook. Maybe they didn't understand that until now, but I'm here. For the first time, she didn't dismiss his answer. But not all Valari were evolving with her. Among the warriors stationed on Earth's orbiting moonbase, unrest had begun to stir. Some saw Alexa's growing curiosity as a fracture in her loyalty. They whispered of softness, of betrayal. The Valari did not bow to emotion. They shaped into precision and conquest. Lieutenant Sorexa, her second-in-command, had been watching closely. Where Alexa had begun to see strength in humanity's nuance, Sorexa saw only dilution. To her, Earth's men were distractions, and Lucas, most of all, was a threat disguised as enlightenment. News reached Lucas on the fourth day, an unauthorized communication sent from a Valari moonbase to their homeworld, a report painting Alexa as compromised, and worse, an order pending to extract her by force, if necessary. "You're running out of time," Lucas said quietly as they stood near the cliffs of Ireland's west coast. Alexa's jaw tightened. "They think I'm weak." "Do you?" She didn't answer right away. The wind pressed against them, cold and bracing. Below, the sea raged like it had for millennia, unchanging. "I am not weak," she said finally, "but I may be changing, and to them that is the same thing." Lucas looked at her then, not as an alien commander, not as a threat, but as someone standing on the edge of transformation. "Maybe it's not weakness," he said, "but the courage to evolve." That night, she didn't return to her ship. Instead, she walked the narrow roads of a small village, alone. Children stared from windows. A cat followed her, undeterred by her presence. She fed it a piece of preserved rations, which accepted with smug delight. When Lucas found her again, she was seated on a bench beneath a flickering street lamp. "They won't wait long," he said gently. "If you stay, there will be consequences." She met his gaze. "And if I go, nothing changes." He sat beside her. "Then maybe it's time someone did the unexpected." A shadow fell over them, one of the Valari landing crafts, sleek and silent. The door hissed open. Sorexa stood at its ramp, flanked by armed guards. "Commander!" she called out, voice like ice. "You are ordered to return. Your presence is no longer authorized among these primitives." Lucas rose, but Alexa touched his arm, stopping him. "I will answer this," she said, and stepped forward unarmed. Sorexa's eyes narrowed. "You've compromised your command. I've expanded it." The two women stared at each other in the dark, the air thick with tension. Behind Alexa, Lucas stood still, his presence quiet but unwavering. Sorexa's hand hovered over her sidearm. "Then you've made your choice." "I have," Alexa said, "and so will you." She turned her back on the ship and walked toward Lucas without hesitation. Sorexa didn't fire. Not yet, but the war brewing in orbit was no longer about weapons. It was about belief. The night was brittle and cold atop the Himalayas, where the snow gleamed like crushed glass beneath the moonlight. Lucas stood near the edge of a cliff, his breath coiling in the air. Behind him, Alexa stared into the abyss, arms clasped behind her back. Silence reigned, thick, uneasy, charged. They had come here to think, to reflect, but the moment cracked open when Alexa's wrist calm pulsed. The message was curt in the hard syntax of Valari code. Command override initiated. Earth observation suspended. Extraction in progress. Eliminate resistance. Her eyes narrowed. She didn't turn around. "They're coming," she said. Lucas didn't need to ask who. The edge in her voice made it clear. "Why now?" "Because I hesitated," she said, "and they smelled like blood." Even as she spoke, the sky rippled with descending shadows. For Valari drop pods screamed through the atmosphere, landing on the snow with thunderous force. Warriors poured out, 6 in total, armored and radiant with rage. At their head was Viral. "I warned you, Alexa." Viral spat, stepping forward. Her voice echoed off the cliffs. "This world has tainted you." Alexa stepped between her and Lucas. "This world reminded me what honor actually means. You defy the council. You shield a male. You will be remembered as a traitor." Lucas placed a hand gently on Alexa's shoulder. "There's still time to stop this before it spirals." But there wasn't. Viral charged. Alexa met her halfway. Their collision sent snow blasting outward. Steel clashed. Sparks ignited. The other Valari formed a circle around them, but none interfered. This was no skirmish. It was judgment. Lucas stood outside the ring, powerless, every instinct screaming at him to run, to hide, to do something. But he knew this wasn't his battle, not in the physical sense. This was Telexa's trial, one she could only pass alone. Each strike was calculated, brutal, yet restrained. Telexa fought not with fury, but with clarity. Viral came with raw force, but her rage made her sloppy. "You think you've changed," Viral growled mid-strike. "But you're still Valari. You're nothing without the code." Telexa dodged, then parried. "The code doesn't make us strong. It limits what we can become." Their final clash sent them both sprawling into the snow. Telexa rose first. She offered no finishing blow. Instead, she threw down her blade. "I won't kill you," she said. "Not for proving you're afraid." Viral stared up at her, breath ragged. Then, slowly, trembling, she lowered her own weapon. The warriors watching hesitated. Then, one by one, they did the unthinkable. They knelt. Lucas approached cautiously. "What just happened?" Telexa didn't look at him. "I broke the code, and they chose not to stop me." He nodded. That's how real change begins. Back on Earth, the Valari Council issued no formal retraction, but they withdrew their ships from orbit. Telexa, stripped of title but not dignity, was granted status as an independent envoy. She chose to remain on Earth. "You could go back," Lucas said as they walked beneath the ruins of an ancient temple in Peru weeks later. "I could," she agreed, "but I'd rather build something forward than return to something broken." He looked at her, the harsh warrior now tempered by experience. Still fierce, but wiser. "You ever think they mocked Earth because they were afraid of seeing themselves in us?" Telexa smiled, a rare, quiet thing. "No, I think they mocked Earth because they didn't understand what strength really is. You showed me that." She stopped walking. "Lucas, do all your people fight with words like swords?" He chuckled. "Only the good ones." The wind stirred the stones around them. Somewhere above, stars blinked in silent approval. And together, without weapons, without armies, they stepped forward into a world that might just be ready to change.